Hi there. Welcome back to Sunnyside Journals. I'm Catherine, and I'm going to continue working on this book. It's either named Infelice or Infelice. That's an Italian word, so I have a suspicion it's sort of pronounced Infelice. I don't speak Italian, so I don't know for sure. We've gutted the book. We've taken the block out of it. The block of papers that was inside. We have removed it down the sides with our X-Acto blade. And now we're going to reinforce this spine because I want to use it. I'm going to be doing a hidden hollowback spine, just as it was originally put together. We're going to put it back together again in a very similar way, obviously not exact. I'm not going to be using presses and putting in 300 pages when we remake her. But I do want her in the spirit of how a hidden hollowback spine works. What I'm going to use, this little book is almost 100 years old, so she's in need of some TLC. She's feeling her age. So what I use is Tyvek. It's a special kind of, I guess it's a paper product or a plastic product. You can't tear it. It's tough stuff. It's not terrible. So, not terrible? It's fantastic. Anyhow, here's how it's spelled, in case you're wondering, what word is she saying? It's called Tyvek. Apparently the postal services in the United States use this a lot in their envelopes. So if you have access to that, keep your eye out for it, because it doesn't matter if they've printed on it U.S. Postal Services and there's eagles and reds and blue and white. It doesn't matter, because it's going to be buried eventually and you're never going to see it. So if you have access to free Tyvek, oh my goodness, do it. I don't up here where I live in Canada. I've yet to be able to find a free source of Tyvek. So I purchase it easily on Amazon. And you can get a whole pack of it. And it comes in, the one I ordered comes in just standard 8.5 by 11 inch sheets. And I ordered a pack a year and a half ago, and I'm barely into 3 sheets because you're only going to be using it a little bit at a time. So what I have done is, let me show you. I usually will just imagine where I want my Tyvek to come here and down here, and I want that little lip to still show when I'm done. So I want my Tyvek to come underneath it because I'm going to have fabric and end papers, and I want to have room to cover those up. So what I do is I usually like my Tyvek to come out about 1/2 inch on either shoulder of the end papers. So I would take a look and see that it just needs to be approximate. This part of it does not need to be science. So I would take my pencil, mark there for how wide I want it, and then I would look down here, and again I want the Tyvek just to be tucked inside where this little lip of the header and footer for the spine will be, because I want my pretty fabric and my end papers to cover this up. So and then I would simply cut it. I cut it on my paper cutter, so I don't know whether that's horrible for my blade or not, but I have one of those Fiskars cutters that I replace the blades every so often anyways. So I've already done that. I have my little piece of Tyvek ready. The next thing I do, everyone does theirs differently, so I don't want the professional bookbinders screaming at their screen right now going, Catherine, what are you doing? This is how I do mine, and it works very nicely for me. My books stay together, and the finished product is very, very nice. So this is how I do mine. So what I will do, if there needs to be no further work inside the old spine, which Infelice doesn't need any further work. Sometimes this little piece of paper, it's sort of like a very, very thin cardstock. Sometimes that'll fall right out and needs to be replaced. I've sort of picked around at that to see if it's going to pop out, and it's not. It's very good, so I'm going to leave it be. I don't want to fuss with her too much if she's doing okay for an old girl. So what I will do though is I sort of approximate, I eyeball where the center is of the spine. You're not going to see that pencil mark eventually, so I just do that pencil mark for myself so that I know I've got my Tyvek balanced as best I can. And then I take my Tyvek and I fold it in half so that I know where the center is. Again, this is not going to show, so it doesn't matter. It's only going to help you making sure you've got your Tyvek centered nicely. So then I would, once I got my glue on, see how I will match up the fold in my Tyvek with the pencil mark. And it would just go right in there like that. So what I do next is I get out I use Fabri-Tac when I make spines. I've heard that Beacon also makes a glue called 123 that is quite popular, and certainly Nick the Booksmith claims that she can't tell the difference. She said it works like it looks like it smells like it. I don't know. This is what I can get up here in Canada. We don't have 123. I'll be willing to try it one day if we ever get that up here. We're slower at getting things up here. So I use my Fabri-Tac. And what I will do, I'm going to turn this a bit because I'm right-handed. And I've noticed that this little lip is a little tiny bit loose. So the first thing I will do is lift that up a bit and make sure I get a bit of the glue underneath there so that that gets glued back down. And I'll just give that a little pat. Doesn't need a whole lot. Don't worry about stuff gushing out there. That's going to, like I said, it's going to eventually be covered up with your fabric and with your end papers. So now what I do is I just start putting in just a moderate amount of Fabri-Tac. I don't go to town on this. I want enough to hold it, but I don't want enough to make it sopping wet with Fabri-Tac. So I just make sure it's well applied. All across the back here. And especially in these little edges, because I'm going to be reforming the shape of this spine back to what it must have been at one point. And now I'm going to go about 1/2 inch on either shoulder, because that's how much approximately we measured our Tyvek to fill in. And it's not a worry if it's not precise. It's not a big deal. Sometimes these end papers can be a little bit loose underneath, and I just like to make sure that there's glue there so that they can, that one's okay. So that there's glue there. See how that's a little bit loose there? I'm just going to make sure there's a tiny bit of glue under there. It might look like there's a lot here. It's just because it's going dark when it hits that paper. There's not a lot of Fabri-Tac on there. All right, let me just get one. Keep your hands clean as you go, or everything will start sticking to you as well. So if you find you've got some Fabri-Tac stuck to your hands, take a minute, take a second, and wipe it off. Fabri-Tac takes a long time to settle permanently. So you've got time to not panic. You can even place your Tyvek, and if you're not happy with it, you'll have time to peel it off and put it back down again. I look for my pencil mark, which is right there, and I hover over it with my fold mark for the Tyvek. And then I make sure that I've just got it basically centered. It doesn't need to be exact. This is all going to be hidden. And then I start in the center and work out. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I've got room. It's not covering both end papers. See how, because I want the new end paper, which is going to be going over this old one, I want it to be well covered. So then I'm going to start working out from that fold and making sure the Tyvek is well applied to the old spine. And as I start working out, notice here with my left hand, I'm sort of pushing a bit because I want to get into that groove. Get into that groove. I do. I want to start recreating the groove that used to be there and giving it some support and helping her remember that she used to have a little bit of a divot there. And then I'm going to start using my thumb and giving it a bit of a bend and working on that. You got lots of time. Take your time if you're using Fabri-Tac. If you're using a different glue, I can't promise you how much time you've got to work with it. Some glues set really quickly, like Art Institute Art Glitter Glue, which I love for paper. It sets very quickly, and there's no going back once you drop something with Art Glitter Glue. Once you drop it onto the paper with Art Glitter Glue. So what I'm doing now is, because Fabri-Tac mooshes out, is that a technical bookbinding term, mooshes out, but you'll get, as long as you're pushing in that direction, it will go where you want. And I just encourage it to do that. So here we go. And I'm doing the same thing here. I'm sort of giving it some push with this side and using these fingers to helping her remember that she had a groove there. Now I can already see here that I haven't got enough Fabri-Tac here on this side. So I'm going to go back in and give her a bit more. Even if it shows over the edge right now, it's not going to show when you're done. That's going to dry, and then it's eventually going to be covered up. So don't worry about that. Now I'm going to start doing that little pinch maneuver again to get her to remember that she had a little groove there. See how that's slowly going, oh yeah, I remember this. I used to have a little groove there. How Infelice gets a groove on. There we go. All right, so that's coming along nicely. And then again, I just start pushing it out to the edge. And getting that Tyvek well adhered to the back cover. I'm worried here that I need a bit more. Yes, I do. Okay, so see what I mean? You've got some time here. I'm going to run a little bead. I didn't put enough, but you got plenty of time. There's no panic when you're doing this part of the bookbinding. Tiny little bit there. And then again, I'm just going to moosh it out towards the edge. I don't mind. See all that stuff that's squishing out? I don't mind that. I'm going to use my, I'm not promoting this brand, but I use a all natural baby wipe to work with in my studio that's actually made out of bamboo, so that I can chuck them into my recycling box when I'm done with them. They're completely bamboo. They are completely compostable. They take 21 days and they compost right down. And that makes me feel a little bit better about the baby wipes that I go through. And because they're so gentle, they don't, I have yet to have them damage my book. And I've had cheap baby wipes from the dollar store. I've had them actually damage a book. So be careful with your baby wipes if you've got one that works for you. Wonderful. And if you're looking for a good one to have on hand, because boy, they sure are handy to have in a glue or ink emergency. Read the labels and find one that works for you. This one I love. I get it at my local grocery store, and I'm very happy with it. And it doesn't have too much of a smell. I have a real sensitive nose, so working with these glues and that, if I can keep the scent down to a minimum. I'm a happy girl. All right, so we've got, I'm happy with how that's applied. I will still go in with my bone folder and make sure that that's really nicely applied, giving pressure, just gentle pressure. You don't have to shove too hard. You're just encouraging it to remember what it used to do. She's 100 years old. I'd be forgetful too at 100 years old. There we go. All right, so Infelice, you must be feeling better already. Infelice? So then what I will do is, you can feel that that's starting to dry because it actually gets cold when Fabri-Tac's drying. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, those of you who use it. It starts getting cold. And I think that's the evaporation process because it evaporates very quickly. The acetone evaporates. It's just like with nail polish remover, how quickly it evaporates. So then what I will do is I will turn her over and I'll give her a bit of a push together so that it helps her remember where the spine was curved. And I'll use something heavy on either side to help her hold that while she finishes drying. And then what I'll do is grab my coffee and go relax and check my email or Instagram. Yay! Have a good day, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Bye.